Hello and welcome to episode number 176, where I welcome back Divya Alter and we talk about cleansing foods for spring. We start out by talking about the 4 types of toxins according to Ayurveda, and then we talk about the foods, the spices, the herbs that can help to cleanse the body during this time. So please stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. I'm your host Colette, and I hope to educate and empower you to take charge of your health and well-being, preventing disease in the body and mind so that you can thrive in life. I will be sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition from India. I will also discuss topics like yoga, which is the sister science of Ayurveda, health and wellness, nutrition, fitness, and mindfulness practices, as well as interviewing lots of inspiring people along the way. My humble wish is to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to help you to connect to each other. If you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend that you start by listening to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. Now, if you like the content, please subscribe to the show so the new episodes will automatically download for you to enjoy. I've also set up a new private community away from social media on my new website, Elements Healing and Wellbeing. Now, this community provides a safe space for like-minded people to come together, to connect, to share, and to support each other. And I have many other perks in this community as well, so check it out. I'll put the link in the show notes or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com, and just click on the community tab in the menu. I hope you can join us. I'm looking forward to a lot more in-depth connection and conversation over there. And now, here's the show. Hey there, and welcome back to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. I'm very happy to welcome back Divya Alter today, who is a certified nutritional consultant, educator, and also a chef in the Shaka Vansiya Ayurveda tradition. She is the co-founder of Bhagavat Life, the only Ayurvedic culinary school in Manhattan, and North America's first Ayurvedic chef certification program. She and her husband, Prentice, also own Divya's Kitchen, an Ayurvedic restaurant in Manhattan. Divya is the author of What to Eat for How You Feel, the new Ayurvedic Kitchen, published by Rizzoli in 2017, and the book is now in its 8th print, along with a new German edition. Hi, Divya. Welcome back to the podcast. It's lovely to have you here again.
Thank you so much for having me, Colette. I'm very excited to be back.
Oh, well, it's wonderful because I know Ayurvedic food and cooking and ingredients and herbs and spices is a huge topic of interest for my listeners. And I love that we're doing these regular conversations and, really demystifying it for people and making it easier and helping people understand that, the cooking and Ayurvedic eating is not to be rigid and strict, but something to be enjoyed.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that even if you learn a little bit about it and apply it, it works, and and you can keep building on it. So you don't have to learn it all at once.
Yes, exactly. Let's start the conversation with why Ayurveda recommends cleansing the body at regular intervals, and particularly the joint of the seasons, which in the Northern Hemisphere, we're coming up on, the joint of the winter, spring season, and then the Southern Hemisphere, it's going from summer, obviously, into autumn.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting. The Vedic texts in general compare the body to a house or a temple. Sometimes it's compared to a city. So let's say the body is a house or a temple and it has 9 gates. Mm-hmm. These are the different openings in the body.
Right.
So just like we clean our house regularly, we also need to clean our body regularly. And the way that Ayurveda recommends cleansing is not just doing like going on a retreat and doing panchakarma once a year or something like that. Just like we don't clean our house once a year, right? We clean it regularly. And there's certain parts of the house we clean once a month, certain parts once a week. Some things we clean daily. So similarly, the practice of Ayurveda teaches us how to keep our body clean internally, externally, at different intervals. So there are certain cleansing procedures that we do daily, like we brush our teeth and we scrape our tongue and we shower, or we empty our bowels. That's like a daily cleaning. Yeah. Certain things are recommended to be done once a week, and this could be more of a like a sweating procedures, like to sweat and let go of toxins, or it could be like a scrub or something like that you do once a week. You could do something once a month as well. And then on the junctions of the seasons, there are drastic changes during those junctures. So in spring, all of a sudden, what happens in nature? Well, the temperatures start to warm up. The snow is melting. There is a lot more humidity in the air. And with the warming temperatures, the channels of our bodies start to open up more. Because during the winter, during the cold season, the channels in the body kind of contract a little bit. So during the winter, we accumulate. Yes. It's the best time to build your immunity. We may accumulate a couple of extra pounds. But during the spring, when the gates of the body, so to say, are more open, it's a very good time to release the accumulated sluggishness from the body. So similarly, in the fall, we need to release a lot of the heat that we accumulate during the summer. So that's why it's a good way to kind of clean the gates in our body so that we are prepared for the winter when the body tends to go more into hibernation, so to say.
Yeah, exactly. And like you're saying, we are so sensitive to these changes in the environment at this time of year. And as we know, the weather can kind of go back and forth for a few weeks. Can it be cold for a few days and then make it very spring-like? And so that creates confusion in our digestion. We're not really sure what we want to eat. We're not craving the foods of winter, but haven't yet transferred into the foods of spring. So there can be a lot of confusion, which can really upset the digestive system as well, right?
Yeah, that too. Yeah. And so it's important to notice these changes. You know, sometimes we're so busy or we're so absorbed in our day-to-day duties that we don't really pay attention to what's happening out the door, and also we don't really make the connection of the changes with our bodies. So it's really important to notice these changes.
Yeah, and awareness is key, because what we can do now, because we have all food available to us at all seasons, is that we can stick with the same eating regime throughout the year. We're getting fruits and veg out of season. So we could easily stick with the same diet all year long, which isn't necessarily healthy for us.
Yes, that's one of the pitfalls of modern civilization and the transportation and getting fruits and vegetables from every continent.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, it really causes us to be out of touch with what's going on in nature. And that's, you know, again, on a bigger scale, what's happening now is we're really disconnected from nature. So going back to that word you just used, awareness, it's really important for us to have awareness of what's going on in our body, what time of year it is, and really be tuning in, because there's so many distractions nowadays to tune us out.
Yes, exactly. And make the necessary changes when you notice that you're feeling a little extra heavy, because spring is a heavy season. Yeah. It's a kapha season. So you need to lighten up. Maybe you need to exercise more. Maybe you need to walk more. Yeah. And then eat lighter foods. We're going to talk about those.
Right, exactly. And that goes along the lines of the Ayurvedic principle of like increases like and opposites balance. Very simple principle to bring into your life. So if spring is heavy, you want to bring in more lightness and movement and stimulation. So we are going to discuss all this today, Divya. And what I'd like to talk about now is ama or toxins. Now, we have talked a lot about ama on this podcast. And so what I'd like to delve into with you today is the 4 types of toxins according to Ayurveda, because I think this is really interesting for people to hear.
Yes, I was actually very intrigued when I first learned this concept from my main teacher, Vaidya Ramakant Mishra. And when he mentioned all these toxins, I was like, wow, this is incredible. Because up until then, I've really heard mostly about ama. So modern Ayurveda, or I should say like popular Ayurveda, kind of only presents ama as a type of toxicity. And technically, ama really isn't, it's not a toxin yet. Ama is simply a semi-digested food. So we ate something, we didn't fully digest, the food didn't fully break down, and that semi-digested matter is called ama. And we identify it as the first stage of toxicity because that ama leads to the next one. So, I mean, Colette, just think about the qualities of ama. So ama is usually very sticky. It's kind of sludgy, and it is cold by nature. So it has a cold energy to it. And some of the symptoms of ama are like having extra congestion, like you may find extra phlegm in your throat or in your sinuses, and feeling kind of sluggish and heavy. You may have experienced a temporary fatigue. So you ate something, maybe you ate too much of it, and this can cause ama because the digestive fire couldn't break it all down. So, and then afterwards you feel very tired, but that's like a temporary fatigue. You may feel stiffness in your muscles, but this is all temporary. Like it goes away because the body has a natural capability of cleansing away ama. So if you have regular bowel movements, if you're exercising regularly, you can get rid of ama with massage and sweating. So the body has a natural system to eliminate ama. Now, sometimes the ama gets stuck. It's just not eliminated on time. And this happens to all of us, especially if our metabolism is lower and we don't exercise enough, or we have very low, very weak digestion. And weak digestion, not just in your stomach, but also on the level of the different body tissues. So if you have low fat metabolism, you will not be able to fully digest fat, not just in the stomach, but also in your fat tissue. So you can get ama stuck there, and then you start building more fat tissue because the toxins are accumulating there. So if the ama gets stuck in the body, then it sits there and it begins to ferment. And it completely changes its qualities. So from cold and sticky and slow moving, it turns into hot, sharp, reactive, and very fast moving. And this is called toxins. It's called ama visha in Ayurveda, and visha literally means poison or toxin. So, I mean, just imagine, think about your garbage. So if you...
I know where you're going with this, yes. I'm smelling it.
So if you just put you're cooking vegetables, especially if you have some of those kale and some cauliflower and broccoli and these cruciferous vegetables, and you put them in your garbage. And the first couple of days they're just sitting there. But as it starts, if it sits there, especially if it's warm in the room, and it begins to ferment, it begins to compost. So then this garbage, from just a cold garbage and cold vegetable scrapes, it starts to ferment. It starts to cook, so to say. and it becomes very smelly and very hot and acidic. And if it has some liquid, you'll start seeing bubbles because of the acidity. So that's the ama and the amavisha. The amavisha is the fermented composting type of semi-digested matter, that's really dangerous. So this is when disease begins to grow in the body.
Right. When there's an accumulation. And when you think of that journey from ama at the early stages, before it enters this like real toxic stage, it's more like kapha qualities, right? It's sticky, right. It's heavy, it's this kind of gummy quality to it. And then, as you said, it ferments and becomes more of that pitta type, acidity, heated, and that's when it gets a little bit more problematic. And also, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the water soluble toxins versus the fat soluble toxins, which you mentioned here. Where our body is very efficient with the water soluble toxins, eliminates it through sweat and urine and feces. But like you said, the fat soluble toxins can get stuck in the fat cells, and then that creates an issue as well.
Yeah, that's exactly, and that's why different herbs and different foods are recommended. To eliminate different, like water-soluble toxins, you need to use liquids.
Yes.
So a juice cleanse or certain types of teas can help with that. But you cannot eliminate fat-soluble toxins with juices. You
need to chelate those.
Exactly, yes. So cultured ghee and high-quality olive oil are very good fats to cleanse the fat tissue.
Yeah, and that's something that's definitely used in Ayurvedic cleanses. We're going to park that because I definitely want to come back to that about cleansing foods and so on. But I'd love to continue on the types of toxins. So we've just covered amavisha.
Amavisha, and I just wanted to mention, because this is a mistake a lot of even Ayurvedic practitioners do, is that ama and amavisha, cleansing those and addressing those, is done in two completely separate protocols, different protocols, because again, ama is cold, amavisha is hot, and ama is usually cleansed through hot treatments, like sweating and using heated oils on your body, and sauna and hot bath and things like that. But amavisha, if you apply hot treatment to amavisha, the person is going to go into a healing crisis. So amavisha has to be dealt with very gently with cooling herbs and spices and foods that don't aggravate the high pitta from the acidic toxins, but at the same time speed up metabolism to be able to burn all of this out of the body.
Exactly. Yes, great advice there. And this is why I want to remind people it's really important to get advice when cleansing rather than just in a one-size-fits-all cleanse. Like Divya was just saying, it's really important to get a tailored cleanse to you, because unbeknownst to yourself, you could end up pushing yourself into further aggravation. And this is where a guided cleanse is really key.
Yeah, and that's why I appreciate you so much, Colette, because that's exactly what you do. And in this way, you can truly help people. A lot of people do cleanses by themselves. They don't know exactly what's happening. They don't even know what toxins they're cleansing.
Right.
Which is usually the first step. You have to identify what you want to cleanse and then how to cleanse it.
Yeah, I appreciate that they're making the effort. I mean, it's fantastic that they're making the effort to cleanse, but it's really good to get education around it so you know exactly what's going on and you're a participant in your healing because you really understand what's happening in your body and it's tailored to you.
Yeah, and you're not wasting time and money and you're not suffering unnecessarily.
Well, I think this is the perfect point to drop in and tell you about my upcoming seasonal cleanse. It's happening on April 16th. It's a discounted cleanse. With this cleanse, you get a private 1-to-1 90-minute consultation where we chat in depth about your current health situation and I tailor the cleanse to you. I educate you on what's going on in your body and then I tailor the recipes, the mindfulness practices, the self-care practices to you. And in this cleanse, you get access to a private cleanse community on my website where we support and hold each other accountable during the cleanse, along with educational videos. So you're really under understanding what's going on in your body and how to cleanse your body. So if you're interested in joining that discounted group cleanse starting April 16th, just check out the link in the show notes or visit my website elementshealingandwellbeing.com and go to the events tab. If that date doesn't work for you, you could do a private cleanse, and this is where you get to choose your own dates. It's the same cleanse, you just get to choose your own timing, and you'll find the private cleanse under programs. So I hope you can join us as we have an international group going through this cleanse program on April 16th. Okay, let's get back to my conversation with Divya. Okay, great. So let's go on to the next one then.
Well, the next one, and it's so amazing, the next one is the exogenous, the environmental toxins. So the toxins we get from outside of the body. And it's called Gata Visha in Ayurveda. So, I mean, just think about what we bombarded with every single day. Right. And you can start with the 5 elements. I mean, there is a pollution in every single element. The space element is polluted by noise and Wi-Fi and you name it, and bad thoughts and things like that. And then the air is polluted. The fire element, well, the fire we also experience through the solar, what you call them, the ozone holes. Yes. The solar radiation. And then water is polluted, or even the water flowing in our tap has all these chemicals in it. This is Garvisha. Chemicals means environmental toxins. And then, of course, the earth, the soil is polluted. So, and then anything we put in our body that has chemical like chemical based, artificial chemical base, it's going to be treated by the liver as a toxin. So any kind of medical drugs, any kind of recreation drugs,
any creams, any products you're putting on your skin.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the detergents you're using at home, the cleaning products, it's so much of them. You know, in the past, back in the day when Ayurveda the sages wrote the ancient text of Ayurveda, they didn't have this problem so much. So the main environmental or exogenous toxins at that time were like parasites and snakes and scorpions. Like a bite from a mosquito or a scorpion or a snake, that would be considered Gata Visha.
But today we have a whole onslaught. And what's happening then with all these different environmental toxins is our liver is getting overloaded, right? And a lot of times when our liver is overloaded, it's literally sending these toxins to the fat cells because it just can't handle the onslaught.
Yeah, exactly. And so Gata in Sanskrit, Gata means slow. So this is a slowly accumulated toxicity. That's why the FDA will say, it's safe to eat food with pesticides because you eat it and nothing happens to you. But these chemicals, they accumulate slowly in the body. The heavy metals, they're very heavy. They sit for a long time in the body. So that's why you may not, unless it's like really severe chemical poisoning, you'll feel it right away. But the slow accumulation happens, and as we age, we begin to develop chronic diseases, and we never really necessarily think about them as the food I ate and the water I drank for 20, 30 years.
Right. No, the cumulative effect of this is huge. And that's why we need awareness about what we're putting, not only what we're putting in our body, but also what we're putting on our body. Obviously, we can't control what's in the air around us, but we can have a look at what is the water like that's coming into our home that we're using on a shower. You know, do I need a shower head cleaner? Things like that, things that are within our control. At least we can make a difference that way.
Yeah, and the good news is that it's much faster to cleanse them out than we accumulate them. So
as long as it's done regularly, which is what Ayurveda recommends. That's the big thing, is regular cleansing, so this accumulation doesn't get to a drastic level.
Exactly. Just so as we mentioned in the beginning, do it regularly. Never do like a bomb type of cleanse. You know, it's like a bomb on your liver.
Yeah.
Because I've done that, by the way. I've done these very drastic liver cleanses, and getting the gallstones out and this and that, and it damaged my liver so much, and I feel sad about it, but I was thinking I was doing the right thing because there were books about it and so much recommended.
What did that consist of?
I've done all kinds of cleanses. I've done fastings. I've done the lemon juice and the olive oil cleanse for the liver.
Oh yeah.
I've done juice cleanses. I tried doing the master cleanse with the maple syrup and the lemon juice and the cayenne pepper, but I got so sick. That was really intense. I got so sick after 2 days that I'm like, okay, this is not for me. So Garavisha, the environmental toxins, they have very similar characteristics as Amavisha, as the fermented Ama. So they're hot, sharp, very reactive, and they travel in the body quickly. So again, you have to be careful what you use, because if you want to clean Amavisha and Garavisha, using cayenne pepper will be really devastating for your body because it's so heating.
Yeah, it's really important to get that guidance and to understand the steps of what's needed.
Yeah, exactly. I've met too many victims of improper cleansing, and sometimes they even go to a clinic to get a panchakarma, which is the traditional Ayurvedic, like 1 month detox. And if some clinics are really good and some clinics just want to take your money, and they would treat you. And if an improper treatment is administered, I've seen so many people very sick after getting panchakarma, and it's because of again not administering the right treatment. All right, so the last type of toxicity described in Ayurveda, and this blew my mind when I heard that Ayurveda described electromagnetic frequencies and radiation.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? 5,000 years ago.
I know, and there is a Sanskrit term for it. It's called Indra Vajra Abhijanya Visha. So Indra Vajra, it's like Indra is considered like the god of heaven, and he holds the thunderbolt. So it translates as being struck. So the type back then, maybe they didn't have the type of electricity that we use today, but they experienced electricity through being struck by a thunderbolt, by a what you call it, lightning. by a lightning. Yeah. That's right. So so there is actually particular if you check the pulse of somebody who was just struck by lightning, there is a very specific rhythm in the pulse, and it's a very like almost like an electrified rhythm in the pulse. So when I was studying pulse reading, pulse diagnostic with Vaidya Mishra, he taught us how to determine this, because he said nowadays with the Wi-Fi and just being in front of a screen all day, a lot of people have this type of pollution, and you can actually feel it in the pulse. Wow. And the interesting thing also is that this kind of electromagnetic frequency really affects the vibrational channels in the body, like the nadis, the meridians. So, and that causes a lot of constriction and imbalance on vibrational level. That's why it affects our nervous system, our ability to sleep. It affects our mind, and it's very subtle. That's why we don't always pay attention to it.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's only going to get worse because we're using more devices. We now have more smart meters installed in our homes. As we become more technologically dependent, we're going to have more exposure to EMFs.
Yeah, exactly. And then the radiation is more like getting an X-ray and having a CT scan or MRI. Or having a nuclear plant explosion or something like that. Yeah. So that's a lot more intense. But yes, this is described in Ayurveda as well, and there are also protocols to clearing that from our body as well. Fortunately, they are protective devices, but also one way to clean this is to always be in nature. Yes. So really connect to the soil of the earth and walking barefoot, hugging a tree. That always helps. It may look weird in the city, but if you're out in nature and nobody's watching, just hug a tree. Exactly. put your heart next to the tree. That's very like grounding, really rooting yourself. Like you can cover yourself with sand on the beach, and of course, swimming in natural waters helps a lot. So, and then eating regularly also in terms of foods that help reduce the effects of radiation are, for example, buckwheat, believe it or not, asparagus, leafy greens, seaweed can be very helpful as well, quinoa. So especially if you just had an x-ray or something like that, like eating a little bit more asparagus, I would put coriander in it because coriander helps eliminate, coriander drives the toxins out through the urinary tract. So cilantro, the coriander leaves, they're chelators. Cilantro is very good for eliminating heavy metals out of the body. Yeah. And the best way to get more of it into your system is to have like a cilantro chutney or blend it as some kind of sauce. Because otherwise, if you're just garnishing your food with a few cilantro leaves, is not much. But if you blend it, and you can get more of it at once. And
parsley has the same effect, doesn't it, as a heavy metal chelator?
Yeah, it's just parsley is a little more heating.
That's true.
So you just be careful if you have high pitta. Parsley is more heating.
That's true. Okay, so now we're already talking about foods that help with these toxins. So can we move forward, or did you have anything else to say about the types of toxins?
No, let's talk about foods.
Lovely. Let's do it. So, I'd love to talk about what foods or spices or herbs, like you're already telling us, can help us to cleanse our body.
Yeah. So again, be very careful with your imbalance. So you have to make sure that if you have high pitta and a lot of acidity, you can have high pitta and very low agni in your stomach. Like you can be very hot. You have high pitta, you feel hot. But your metabolism and your digestion are very low. Right. So that's a very tricky condition to cleanse in such condition. And I would actually recommend to be guided if you're feeling that way. Because you want to use herbs that dry away ama, and they're usually hot. And then you don't want to aggravate your pitta, which is already hot. Yeah. So it's very tricky. But in general, we can just talk about foods in general. So when we talk about cleansing foods, you have to consider two things. One is foods that really help eliminate toxins, and the other one is binder foods. So binder foods are usually more slippery, more mucilaginous. I don't want to call them slimy. Well, I already called it. Like that kind of food. Right. My editors always say slimy is not an appetizing food.
No.
I'm like, okay, we'll call it slippery. So that binding property is like the packaging and shipping of toxins. You want to have those foods in your diet, especially when you're cleansing. So bitter foods are always very cleansing and very good for the liver. The liver loves bitter. So think about bitter foods. What are some bitter foods that you like, Colette?
Oh, I like dandelion a lot, kale, and the bitter greens is what I really like.
Yeah. So great. I mean, dandelions are coming in season now in spring. That's one of the first green that comes out. And you'll notice actually a lot of bitter greens are the first harvest of spring. And it's just nature's genius design.
Yes.
For us to use them to clean our bodies. Yeah, exactly. Kale, color greens are bitter. I love broccoli rabe. Broccoli rabe is it's more bitter than other greens, and it's just so nice. And then a very bitter vegetable is bitter melon, which comes out more in the early summer. It grows like a cucumber. And that's fantastic for your liver. So if you're not very sick, if you don't feel very sick, then definitely incorporate bitter melon like 2 or 3 times per week.
Yeah, that's often mentioned in Ayurveda. How do you cook that?
In my cookbook, What to Eat for How You Feel, I have a very nice recipe for roasted bitter melon. Well, on the outside, it looks like like an alien vegetable. It's very wrinkled, and we're talking about the Indian bitter melon. The Chinese bitter melon is slightly different.
Okay.
So it's kind of it looks like cucumber. It really grows like cucumber, but it's like a very wrinkled cucumber. And then on the inside, it has these large seeds that are very hard also. So I always scoop out the seeds because they're hard to digest. And you can just slice it and add spices. I always add coriander to bitter melon because, again, remember that the goal of cleansing is to eliminate toxins, not just to release them.
Right.
Because sometimes, and that's why when we decide to cleanse, we have to make sure that the gates of our body are open.
Yes, that's the primary thing to focus on. Yeah.
Make sure you're not constipated.
Right.
Because that's a major channel of elimination.
Right.
And make sure that make sure that you don't have any skin problems, like severe skin problems. The skin is open because the pores of the skin is a huge organ of elimination. Make sure that you're able to pee as much as possible during the day. So you adjust your lifestyle. Sometimes the kind of work you're doing, you're not able to pee exactly when you want to. So, but when you cleanse, whenever you get a call of nature, you have to go. Yes,
because that's a big problem with the aggravation in the body is holding natural urges. That's commonly coming up in Ayurveda as a cause for disease.
Yeah, exactly. So making sure that the body, the gates are open so that you can eliminate on time. So that's the bitter melon. I love Moringa. I love Moringa. It's a very strong, you can use the leaves, you can use the pods. They call it drumsticks also. And in my cookbook, I have a recipe for Moringa soup, which I love. But Moringa is called shigru in Ayurveda, in Sanskrit. And one of it means very sharp. It's sharp like an arrow. And Moringa can go all the way down to the bone marrow, which is a deep tissue, and it can pull toxins all the way from the bone marrow. So it's a very heating herb or vegetable. So you have to be careful how you use it. I always use cooling spices like coriander, fennel, curry leaves when I cook with it. And that's bitter melon and Moringa are two foods that you don't want to have every day. They're way too strong to have them every day.
Yeah.
The other, like asparagus, is a very good cleansing vegetable for the kidneys. Daikon radish is fantastic for your liver and kidneys. There are many others. Beets, I love beets because they're very good for diluting the bile, and also cleansing the liver. Red beets. But I wanted to also mention the binder foods.
Yes, I was going to go back there. Yep.
It's the packaging. Remember, you want to package it and ship it out.
Yes.
So binder foods, again, the slippery foods are, I like taro root a lot. I use it as a potato substitute.
Arrowroot.
Taro, yeah, Taro. Taro. I don't think you get it there where you are.
No, I've heard of arrowroot, but not taro root.
Well, arrowroot is another binder. So if you can get arrowroot, you can use it as a thickener in your soup, and it's very good. I like okra a lot in the summer.
Yeah. Now okra's slimy, isn't it?
It is slimy. So see, all these slippery properties, they're also fertilizer for the friendly bacteria to grow. So they're prebiotic foods as well. Barley is another binder. Barley is also a very good grain to use for cleansing, especially for kapha dosha. Some foods are cleansing because they also have a scraping property. They can scrape accumulation in the channels of the body. So, for example, millet has very powerful scraping properties. Very good for cooking millet in spring. But again, millet is one of those foods that you don't want to use every day, because if you use it every day, it will keep scraping, and then it will start scraping the good lining of your gut.
Right, it's quite intense. And a millet would be considered warming and dry, right?
It's so interesting. I'm writing a new cookbook, and it's about Ayurvedic cooking by ingredient, and I have a section on millet.
Yeah.
And there are many different types of millet described in Ayurvedic texts and also available today. So some of them are cooling and some of them are heating.
Okay. And it is a light grain. It's a very light grain.
Yeah, it's like a little seed. They call it bird food because the birds love it.
Right.
Bird seed.
Yeah, it's often in bird seed. You're right. I have cooked with it before. It's very light. It's almost as light as quinoa.
Yeah, it's very light, very drying, and because of that, it has a very good scraping property. So excellent for losing weight. And one lentil that I love that has magical cleansing properties is called kulti lentils. Kulti is a Hindi name. The English name is horse gram, and the Sanskrit name is kulatta. And kulti is very hard, like it grows in very rocky areas, and it has really powerful ability to dissolve, to break down kidney stones and gallstones. It has a very powerful decalcification properties, and it really melts away accumulation of buildup in the joints and reduces inflammation like arthritis. And I've seen magical things of just people even drinking kulti tea, which will be in my new cookbook, the recipe, but just using kulti like a couple of times a week, and it really, any kind of kidney stone, gallstone, all of this dissolves, and it really, really works. I've seen it over and over again.
Well, it sounds very kapha pacifying there.
It is, because it's a heating lentil, so you have to cook it with cooling spices. But a couple of times a week, especially in spring, using kulti, it really helps. Like any kind of buildup in the arteries, it really helps clean all of this out. It's delicious. That's the best part of it. Yeah, I have recipes in What to Eat for How You Feel with kulti, and I explained how to properly cook it. And I also will have some recipes in my new cookbook as well. Okay,
great. And I'll put those links in the show notes to those books. And so another scraping bean, of course, is the mung dal.
Yeah. That's the best. That's the best lentil and less legume of all. But it's also the most gentle one. Yeah. So very good source of fiber. That's why we put it in cleansing khichidis, because it is not heating, it's actually cooling. Right. So it doesn't aggravate hot toxins, and it has a sweet taste. So it has a very, very calming, very gentle way of cleansing.
Yeah, very easy to digest and tridoshic.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so do we have more foods or spices?
Yeah, well, let's talk about spices.
Great.
So remember, for cleansing ama, so if you feel congested or if you kind of feel sluggish, then you need hot spices, because that will drive away the mucus and it will open the channels and clear the channels. So I love green Thai chilies, even though I'm not very much of a chili person.
Yeah, I can't handle chili.
I can handle a little bit occasionally, but I cannot just eat chilies.
I'm such a lightweight.
Yeah, we're very similar that way. So, but even ginger. So ginger, I love ginger because it has a sweet post-digestive taste. So it's pungent, but it's not very intense. It doesn't aggravate pitta too much.
And this is fresh ginger as opposed to dry ginger, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, fresh ginger. So that's a very good cleansing spice. I always prefer it over onions and garlic. They're way too sharp on pitta. Yeah. But ginger doesn't aggravate pitta so much while doing all the scraping, cleansing properties, antiviral, antibacterial also. And then ajwain. Ajwain is a really good spice for cleansing ama. It's a hot spice. And it also helps rekindle the digestive fire. So usually ama is caused by weak digestion. So Ajwain is one of those spices that will clear the ama, but it will also kindle, it will strengthen your fire, in digestive fire in the stomach. So you can just add it to, you can cook with it, of course, but you could also make a simple tea with Ajwain, and with you can add a pinch of cumin to it, like 1 pinch Ajwain, 2 pinches cumin, like that. Nice. And make a cup of tea. And you, especially if you ate something, you feel very heavy afterwards, just drink that tea and it will clear it very quickly. And then I love kalonji. Kalonji is the black cumin, or the nigella seeds. Now kalonji can clean ama from every tissue in the body.
Means business.
Yeah. And it's so tasty, and it's really, really good. You don't have to use too much of it. You just use it like cumin. And I love using kalonji. So these are just some examples of spices. There are many, of course, turmeric.
Yeah.
Turmeric cleanses the liver directly and cleanses the blood. It cleanses the skin.
Yeah, and then turmeric is great, especially the end of winter going into spring, because it's a little bit more stringent. So it's like, it's that drying effect on the body when there is more moisture in the air and there's more heaviness and congestion in the body.
Yeah, exactly. It's astringent, it's pungent, so it's bitter also, but don't use too much turmeric, and only cook with it, because if you use too much, your food will be bitter. And you have to cook with it to fully assimilate it. It's the best assimilation of turmeric happens when you cook it. It's good to add fat, because turmeric is also drying. So adding a little bit of oil to the food with turmeric. And I also add a cooling spice just to balance the heat. So I would use coriander, or I would use fennel. I love using curry leaves. They're cooling. And they're also very good for detoxifying the liver and the pancreas as well.
Okay, thanks, Divya. That's brilliant advice there. And what I'd love now, as we finish up here, is to talk about some of your favorite spring cleansing dishes. How do we bring these gorgeous ingredients that you advised us to use? How do we bring them together? Could you give us some of your top cleansing dishes?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, Moringa soup. I really love that soup. It's more like almost like a broth, and it's tasty. I love the taste of it, and it feels so good after I eat it. It gives me a lot of energy too. So I definitely love the Moringa soup. I also like to make like a minestrone kind of thing. I love Italian flavors, so I make it like Italian khichdi with barley and a little bit of lentils. And
okay, so you're putting beans in there as well.
Yeah, so I would use whole barley, and then I would use maybe a red lentil, or sometimes I would use chana dal if my digestion is stronger, which is the baby chickpeas. And then I would add taro root to it, so that's the binder, and I like adding celery and carrots, and I like to add daikon radish to it. So I have it's like a stew.
Nice.
And it is like a khichdi, but instead I use spices for it. I definitely put coriander, but I also use the basil and oregano, so the Italian herbs that are also very cleansing and very good for digestion.
Lovely. Yeah, basil and oregano are a little bit warming.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you use a tomato base in your minestrone?
No, I actually cook without tomatoes because ever since I had my autoimmune, I started avoiding nightshades because they were causing a lot of pain. I had chronic inflammation. And now I usually eat really good tomatoes when I'm in Bulgaria visiting my mom, and she grows the most amazing tomatoes in her garden, and I would eat those.
Nice, beautiful. Great. And of course the beans are good at this time of year as well, because lots of fiber to really help bind, right, the toxins and take them out of the body. And again, they're astringent.
Astringent, which balances kapha, but also remember that astringent foods are very drying for the body. So if you feel that you still have a lot of high vata in your body, then you can eat those astringent foods, but add a little bit more ghee or olive oil, and maybe add some balancing like root vegetables, just to balance it out a little bit. Otherwise, you get constipated.
Yeah, and beans are not that easy for a high vata aggravation to digest anyway. Unless they're really well cooked and have, like you said, digestive spices and oils and lots of liquids with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In general, I use more barley in spring. I like to have, I occasionally eat millet and buckwheat, like maybe once a week, especially during spring, because it really makes my skin very dry.
Okay. Yeah.
Grain.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy them in spring, and I enjoy asparagus very much. I eat it in many different ways, and I make sure that I have a leafy green every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Great advice. And the barley you use, is that pearl barley?
I prefer the whole barley because it is more nutritious, but also it's harder to digest. So I soak it overnight and I cook it really well until it opens up fully, and then it's okay.
Okay, so the pearl barley is the polished version of the whole barley, right?
Yeah. Okay. Pearl barley is also okay, especially if you have weak digestion, then start with pearl barley. Or you can start with barley flakes. Oh, yeah. So barley flakes are the pressed whole barley grain. So you still get the fiber and all the benefits, but it cooks in 10 minutes instead of 45 to 60 minutes. Yeah. And it's still delicious.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And then you mentioned buckwheat earlier, and buckwheat needs to be soaked as well, right? Because that has that slimy consistency when you soak it.
Well, that's the raw buckwheat. Yeah, it looks more slimy. Yeah. I like to roast my buckwheat because it doesn't get mushy. It actually gets really nice and fluffy. So the way they eat buckwheat in Russia, they dry roast it until it's kind of brown, darker brown. Yeah. And then you cook that as a cereal, and it's amazing. I have a buckwheat recipe or buckwheat recipe in my cookbook, What to Eat for How You Feel.
Oh, that's interesting. So you dry roast it like in a dry pan?
Right. Yeah. Or you can just buy it roasted. It's called kasha when it's roasted.
And then how would you cook it then after that?
So then you cook it just like rice. You bring the water to a boil. I prefer to use 3-to-1 ratios, so 3 cups water to 1 cup buckwheat. And bring it to a boil, add salt. I like to add herbs and spices to it. And then I rinse the buckwheat and I put it in the hot water, then lower the heat and simmer it covered it takes about 20 minutes.
That sounds delicious.
It is.
Yeah. And so roasting the grains, sometimes they make it lighter, right? When you roast the dry roast grains. Okay.
Yeah. You can also dry roast beans. I mean, there's like the sato flour roasted. So by dry roasting lentils also, it makes them easier to digest. I wanted to just summarize that, yes, cleansing is very important. It has to be, it's even more important to understand what kind of toxins are seated in your body. What do you need to cleanse? And really, if you're able to get guided when you're cleansing, because there are certain conditions and certain times when you should not cleanse. So never cleanse if you're pregnant or if you are breastfeeding, first of all. That's really, really important. I used to see young mothers, they're like, I want my baby to get the best breast milk. So they would drink these detox smoothies while they're breastfeeding, and the breast milk is a byproduct of the body. Toxins go out of the body also through the breast milk. So her baby was having seizures because of that, and nobody could help her until she stopped cleansing. And then also don't get into any cleanse if you're very weak. And if you're really like chronically weak and you don't have any energy, like you have to build up your strength first, because cleansing takes a lot of energy from the body.
Yeah, cleansing is depleting. In that case, you need rejuvenation.
Exactly. Yes. So again, be guided. If you're feeling that way, be guided what to do first. And very often, a lot of people need to rejuvenate and to build first before they cleanse.
That's very true in today's world, Divya. I'm glad you're making these points. So important is that a lot of people can be stressed out, burnt out in today's world. So cleansing may not be appropriate.
Yeah. If you're very depleted, don't do it. And then the other thing is also if you're very stressed out, you have a very hectic schedule, you need to relax when you're cleansing because you'll be feeling extra tired. So it's important to give yourself the space and the time to rest as much as you need, to eliminate, to go to the bathroom whenever you need. So that's really, really important.
Great. They are great points. Thank you for covering those, particularly when you're breastfeeding and pregnant. Ayurveda talks about a preconception phase, even before you try to conceive a child, that you do your cleansing then, months in advance of even thinking about conception. So thank you for making that point. Can you tell people about Divya's Kitchen and about Bhagavat Life, which we talked about the last time, but just remind people about that and where they can go to find out more about your offerings. And I know you have a special offer for the listeners today.
Yes, absolutely. So Divya's Kitchen is in Manhattan, New York City. And we also have an online shop, which is divyaskitchen.com/shop. And this is where you can purchase all kinds of Ayurvedic spices and teas. We have a bunch of cleansing teas that are really appropriate, like Moringa tea or detox tea. We have a few of them on our website. We have really good spice blends also, that there's certain spice blends that open the channels in the body, kind of open the gates before you start cleansing. Yeah. And we also have our unique meal packets and products that we created during the lockdown, during the pandemic. So we have 4 types of khichdi packets, one for each dosha and one tridoshik. And they're very convenient because we rinse and soak the lentils, rinse the grains, dehydrate them again. And then, so you don't have to do this at home. And then we add appropriate spices for each dosha. So when you open the packet, you just have to pour it in boiling hot water and you have a fresh khichdi meal in 20 minutes.
Amazing.
Yeah, you can add vegetables. So these khichdi packets are great also for doing a spring cleanse. If you want to do the Ayurvedic khichdi cleanse, again, highly recommended to be guided as you're doing it. But even if you just eat khichdi for a couple of days and do nothing else, this will help you reset your digestive system.
It'll give your digestion a break.
Exactly. So that's a very simple nutritional cleanse that you can do. And then what else? We also have the cultured ghee that it's very special because we culture the cream into cream yogurt and churn that ourselves to make fresh cultured butter, and then we immediately cook it into ghee. The cultured ghee is very good for cleansing the fat tissue. It's a good fat that helps pull fat-soluble toxins from the body.
Great. And so Divya has a lovely offer for all you listeners, 15% off your first time purchase. And that's at divyaskitchen.com/shop with the code Elements of Ayurveda 15. And I'll put that link in the show notes also.
Yes, please use the code. We would love for you to try our products and get your feedback also. That's really important to us. And then one more thing that I'm really excited. I've been teaching a lot these days because that's something that we can do now, especially as we're not able to, all of our classes are virtual. We're not able to have people indoors yet. But we have these amazing cooking classes, and they're always seasonal, so you can attend them and learn how to cook seasonal ingredients Ayurvedically and make them really delicious. And I'm very excited about the class coming up on March 28th. I will be co-teaching with Dr. Robert Graham, who is a Harvard-trained medical doctor of integrative medicine, who is also a good friend of mine, and he is also a professionally trained chef. So he's one of the founders of culinary medicine. He's a doctor who is also a chef and who also always advises his patients on how to eat good food and what food to eat for their condition and how to cook it.
Amazing.
Yeah, so we'll be together teaching a class about spring diet and what foods to favor and avoid in spring, and we'll cook a couple of spring recipes.
Lovely. So that's March 28th, and I'm going to put the link to that to sign up. Is that with Bhagavat Life?
Yes, with Bhagavat Life. Thank you so much, because, this is a rare class. I don't know if we'll teach this again until next year or something.
Okay.
It will be a very special class.
Wonderful. So, Bhagavat Life, in case you didn't hear our last episode together, is the only Ayurvedic culinary school in Manhattan. And so I'll put that link in the show notes also for you.
Yes, bvtlife.com. B is in boy, V is in Violet, T is in Tom, life.com.
Wonderful. And Divya, thank you so much for sharing all this with us today. You're so generous with your information. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I've learned a lot as well. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Colette. It's always a pleasure. You're so easy to talk to. And I learned from you a lot as well.
Oh, thank you, Divya. I look forward to having you back again. And until then, take good care of yourself.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody.
Okay, Divya. Thanks. Talk soon. So there you go. Lots of wonderful information there on cleansing foods for spring. If you think that this episode will be helpful to family or friends, please share it with them so we can get this wonderful wisdom of Ayurveda out there. Also, please check out the show notes for all the links to Divya's restaurant, Divya's kitchen, Bhagavat Life, her upcoming cooking classes, and books also. And in the show notes, you'll find the link to my upcoming discounted digestive reset cleanse starting April 16th. If you'd like to continue the conversation, please check out the Elements of Ayurveda private community on my website. I'll put the link to that in the show notes as well. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, please do so the new episodes can automatically download for you. And if you'd like to rate and review it, I would really appreciate that. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate your support. And until next time, take good care of yourself, be well, and slán go fóill. Bye for now.